Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, all is vanity. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear the Most High and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Shalom Israel. I am Brother Simeon Israel, and welcome to today's Bible lesson. First and foremost, I'd like to start by giving all praises to the almighty power of my forefathers, the almighty power of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Today's lesson is part 2 of a 2-part series. This lesson is titled as the Weekly Sabbath, investigating the ancient Israelite weekly Sabbath cycle. We'll explore the following points today. When does a new month begin? What is the first month of the ancient Israelite year? What is the Most High's weekly Sabbath cycle? What does the non-astronomical weekly Sabbath cycle look like? What do most Israelites follow now? And finally, how do we get back the authentic weekly Sabbath cycle? The Ancient Lunar Calendar, beginning of a new month. 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 18 and verse 24 to 25 reads as follows. Then Jonathan said to David, "Tomorrow is the new moon, and thou shalt be missed, because thy seat will be empty." Hold up. How did Jonathan know tomorrow the new moon would appear? Did he have some means of forecasting the lunar phases? Very interesting. Continuing at verse 24. So David hid himself in the field, and when the new moon was come, the king sat him down to eat meat. And the king sat upon his seat, as at other times, even upon a seat by the wall. And Jonathan arose, and Abner sat by Saul's side, and David's place was empty. Here we see that the new moon came, and the king had a feast that evening to celebrate. But how did Jonathan know tomorrow the new moon would appear? Did they have ancient technology to forecast such a thing? The answer is no. No technology was needed. Ancient societies had a very simple way of forecasting the new moon, given that the lunar months were always 29 or 30 days long. For example, in the Encyclopedia Britannica, we see the following. The Egyptian lunar calendar, the older of the two systems, consisted of 12 months whose duration differed according to the length of a full lunar cycle, which was normally 29 or 30 days long. Each lunar month began with a new moon, reckoned from the first morning after the waning crescent had become invisible, and was named after the major festival celebrated within it. Since the lunar calendar was 10 or 11 days shorter than the solar year, a 13th month called Tut was intercalated every several years to keep the lunar calendar in rough correspondence with the agricultural seasons and their feasts. Here we see that the ancient Egyptian definition of a new month is the first morning after the night of the sun-moon conjunction when there is no visible moon. That is, the morning after the waning crescent is gone and the moon is not visible. The morning after the conjunction is typically the first day of a visible waxing crescent, and this is what the Israelites would have grown accustomed to after spending hundreds of years in Egypt. Continuing from verse 26. Nevertheless, Saul spake not anything that day, for he thought, something hath befallen him. He is not clean. Surely he is not clean. And it came to pass on the morrow, which was the second day of the month, that David's place was empty. And Saul said unto Jonathan, his son, Wherefore cometh not the son of Jesse to meet? Neither yesterday nor today. The word yesterday in the context of this scripture is referring to the day wherein the king held the customary new moon feast on the day that the new moon appeared, and David was absent from that feast. Now on the morrow, which means the day after the feast, it was the second day of the month. Therefore, the day upon which the new moon appears is indeed the first day of the month from an ancient Israelite perspective. Now, in part 1 of this 2-part series, we saw that the new moon from the ancient Israelite perspective is in fact the first waxing crescent of moonlight after the sun-moon conjunction. where the moon is typically invisible. This new moon marks the first day of a 29 or 30-day month, where the average time between new moons is 29.5 days. Therefore, the waxing crescent appears, that is, the new moon appears on the evening of the first day of the month and can usually be seen early during the daytime of the first day. All you have to do is look up to know when the month started. Now, some might think, isn't this process inefficient? Why are they waiting to confirm sighting of the new moon and the first of the month when the first day is almost finished? Doing things this way is okay if the new moon feasts are always held at evening. But suppose someone had an appointment on the morning of the first day of the month. To those harboring such concerns, I would say, when in ancient Israel, you do as the ancient Israelites do. Stop thinking like a Roman when analyzing ancient Israelite culture. And Jonathan is definitely a witness to the fact that the ancient Israelites had a technique for forecasting the new moon. Another aspect of ancient Israelite cultural practices that prove they knew when the new moon would occur before it came can be found in the book of Nehemiah, chapter 8. Verse 1 and 2 reads as follows: And all the people gathered themselves together as one man into the street that was before the water gate. And they spake unto Ezra the scribe to bring the book of the law of Moses, which the Lord had commanded to Israel. And Ezra the priest brought the law before the congregation, both of men and women, and all that could hear with understanding, upon the first day of the 7th month. In verse 2, we see that the 7th month arrived, and all the people were gathered together. Continuing at verse 3, And he read therein before the street that was before the water gate, from the morning until midday, before the men and the women, and those that could understand, and the ears of all the people were attentive unto the book of the law. Verse 3 says that he read from morning to the middle of the day. This tells us that the people knew that it was the first day of the month, and when the day began, they gathered to hear the reading of the law. Continuing at verse 10, Then he said unto them, Go your way, eat the fat, and drink the sweet, and send portions unto them for whom nothing is prepared. For this day is holy unto our Lord. Neither be ye sorry, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. So the Levites stilled all the people, saying, Hold your peace, for the day is holy, neither be ye grieved. And all the people went their way to eat, and to drink, and to send portions, and to make great mirth, because they had understood the words that were declared unto them. After the new moon assembly, the people went their own way to feast and be merry. Now, 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 24 makes it clear that King Saul ate his feast when the new moon had come, and Jonathan told David that the new moon was coming tomorrow. When we take all this into consideration, we come to the following conclusion. According to Jonathan, the ancient Israelites knew the exact day of the new moon before it occurred, and on the morning of the first day of the month till midday, the new moon assembly took place to hear the reading of the law by the priests. After the reading of the law and worship of the Most High, the congregation feasted and made merry. And finally, King Saul had a tradition of feasting when the new moon appeared in the evening on the first day of the new month. The Ancient Lunar Calendar, first month of the Israelite year. Exodus chapter 12 verses 1 to 2 reads thus: And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. We see here that before receiving the 7-day weekly Sabbath in the wilderness, the Most High appointed the first month of a new Israelite timekeeping system while they were still in Egypt. Furthermore, in Deuteronomy chapter 16 verse 1, we see the following: Observe the month of Abib, and keep the Passover unto the Lord thy God. For in the month of Abib the Lord thy God brought thee forth out of Egypt by night. In the first month, the Passover was ordained and the Israelites exited Egypt. The new moon that immediately follows the Abib Bali determines the beginning of the year. The Strong's Concordance defines the Hebrew word Abib as follows. Abib is found under the heading age 24 in the Strong's Concordance. It means fresh, young barley ears, barley, month of air forming, of greening, of crop, of growing green Abib, month of Exodus and Passover, usually in March or April. The Most High Sabbath, a weekly Sabbath with no astronomical basis. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, a week is defined as follows. Week, period of 7 days, a unit of time artificially devised with no astronomical basis. The week's origin is generally associated with the ancient Jews and the biblical account of the creation, according to which God labored for 6 days and rested on the 7th. The Sumerians and the Babylonians divided the year into weeks of 7 days each, one of which they designated a day of recreation. The idea of an artificial week originated in Israelite culture. The Babylonian and Sumerian 7-day weeks were lunar weeks, wherein the first day of the first week of each month coincided with a new moon. The lunar day of recreation was an ancient practice of the heathen. Moreover, Exodus chapter 16 verses 25 to 26 reads as follows. And Moses said, Eat that today, for today is a Sabbath unto the Lord. Today ye shall not find it in the field. 6 days ye shall gather it, but on the 7th day, which is the Sabbath, in it there shall be none. Here we see the creation of a new weekly system with no astronomical basis in the wilderness after the Exodus. Indeed, the start of the week had absolutely nothing to do with the phase of the moon. Israel was hungry and got manna from heaven after they requested it, and the Most High used the opportunity to teach our ancestors of the 7th day weekly Sabbath. That is, the Most High taught them of the 7-day cycle from the Most High's 7th day of rest after the creation of the heaven and the earth and everything in it. Furthermore, Exodus chapter 16 verses 1 to 2 reads as follows. And they took their journey from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came unto the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the 2nd month after the departing out of the land of Egypt. And the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. Here we see that in the 2nd month, on the 15th day of the month, the manna was requested. Continuing at verse 6. And Moses and Aaron said unto all the children of Israel, At even then ye shall know that the Lord hath brought you out from the land of Egypt. And in the morning then ye shall see the glory of the Lord. For that he heareth your murmurings against the Lord. And what are we, that ye murmur against us? And Moses said, This shall be when the Lord shall give you in the evening flesh to eat, and in the morning bread to the full. For that the Lord heareth your murmurings which ye murmur against him. And what are we? Your murmurings are not against us, but against the Lord. Indeed, on the 15th day of the 2nd month, the Most High promised that in the evening he would provide meat, and the next day, on the morning of the 16th day of the 2nd month, he would provide manna. The idea of creating a week that is independent of the start of the lunar month, or 7-day lunar cycle, started with the Israelites in the wilderness. The first day of manna was the first day of the first Israelite non-astronomical 7-day week cycle, and they received this weekly Sabbath commandment after observing the first Passover in Egypt, visualizing the non-astronomical weekly Sabbath. The popular Egyptologist website called The Nile Scribes says the following about the Egyptian day of rest. Like us, the Egyptian civil calendar divided the solar year, Renpant, into 12 months, but each month, Abed, consisted of a standard 30 days, Hiru, equaling 360 days in a year. Each of the 12 months contained 3 weeks. The work week was 9 days long, followed by 1 day of rest. While in Egypt, our ancestors observed the day of rest that the dominant society appointed. This was the 10th day of the week, Earlier we saw from a different source that the ancient Egyptians also used the moon to mark the beginning of the month. Here the Nile Scribes Egyptology website is confirming the same information and also presenting the fact that the Sirius star was used to mark the first day of the new year for the ancient Egyptians. Clearly, there were cultural influences in ancient Egypt that would impact the way our Israelite ancestors would use the celestial bodies to keep time. However, while free in Egypt, the Israelites were a set-apart people. We see this in Genesis chapter 45, verses 9 to 11, which reads as follows: Haste ye, and go up to my father, and say unto him, Thus saith thy son Joseph, God hath made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down unto me, tarry not, and thou shalt dwell in the land of Goshen. And thou shalt be near unto me, thou, and thy children, and thy children's children, and thy flocks, and thy herds, and all that thou hast. And there will I nourish thee, for yet there are 5 years of famine, lest thou and thy household and all that thou hast come to poverty. Moreover, even while in slavery in Egypt, they remained in Goshen. In Exodus chapter 9, verse 26, we see the following: Only in the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel were, was there no hail. Indeed, the Israelites remained set apart in Goshen during the entire time in Egypt. Even during the 10 plagues brought against Egypt, the Israelites were not always slaves in Egypt. Therefore, it stands to reason they had knowledge of timekeeping that they may have gathered from the Egyptian culture or held before arriving in Egypt. If they did, the Israelites would have maintained a purely lunar timekeeping system with no artificial weeks, as none was mentioned in the Hebrew scriptures until they got to the wilderness. They would not have been allowed to keep their own civil calendar at the time of the Exodus, as they were captives in Egyptian civilization and followed the Egyptian civil calendar, much the same way we use the calendar system given to us by the Romans today, called the Gregorian calendar. This Gregorian calendar is our civil calendar, but some of us keep a separate lunar calendar for agricultural purposes only. This calendar is called the Farmer's Almanac. For our Israelite ancestors in Egypt, their timekeeping system would be a lunar calendar necessary for things such as growing their own food or tracking the menstrual cycle of women. So, they may have been familiar with the 7-day cycles of the moon in the lunar calendar. However, their rest day would have been whatever their Egyptian captors gave them, which would have been every 10th day of the week on the Egyptian civil calendar. This is just a visualization of what a 7-day lunar week would have looked like from our modern perspective before entering the wilderness. No artificial week or 7th-day Sabbath was known yet as they got ready to leave Egypt. Just a 29 or 30-day lunar month. Here, the 14th is the first day of eating unleavened in the evening. It is the Passover given in Egypt. For 7 daylight periods from the 15th to the 21st, no leaven shall be eaten until the evening of the 21st day, which is a holy day. You would observe 50% illumination of the moon on the 7th and 21st day, a full moon on the 14th day, and typically a waning crescent on the 28th day, with no visible moon on the 29th day. The manna was first received on the morning of the 16th day of the second month. The first 7th day weekly Sabbath was celebrated on the 22nd day of the second month of the year after the Exodus from Egypt. Looks familiar, doesn't it? With the implementation of the artificial week based on when manna first fell from heaven, it's now similar to the modern Gregorian calendars. Now, the first day of the month can fall in the middle of the non-astronomical week. The first day of the new month does not have to be the first day of a lunar week, but the first day of the month always falls on a new moon. At this point, it doesn't matter what you name the days of the week, just as long as you maintain the same artificial week cycle without losing track of the days. However, because of the iniquity of our forefathers, we not only lost track of time, we completely lost our heritage. In Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 4, we see the following. And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and will cause thee to serve thy enemies in the land which thou knowest not. For ye have kindled a fire in mine anger, which shall burn forever. During the transatlantic slave trade, we totally lost our heritage. This includes our records of how we tracked the artificial calendar week first created to observe the Sabbath in the wilderness, and we were force-fed the Gregorian calendar in captivity. Therefore, how would we know if the Romans placed their Sunday on our manna day 3 and decided to make our manna day 3 their first day of the week? How would we know if their 7th day still aligns with our Sabbath? What do most Israelites follow now? In Daniel chapter 7, verse 23 to 24, we see the following. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down, and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall arise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. Continuing from verse 25. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until a time, and at times, and the dividing of time. The fourth beast has totally worn out the saints of the Most High, after approximately 400 years and 4 generations since the start of slavery, according to the Gregorian calendar. Even today, some Israelites are still begging and pleading for Israelite lives to matter in this beast system, and the fourth beast has successfully changed the times and laws. They teach us that we can eat whatever we want, dress however we want, have sex with whoever we want, and that Sunday is the Sabbath and a new day begins in the middle of the night. Today, our understanding of days, weeks, and months comes from the timekeeping system of the fourth beast. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, the Babylonians named each of the days after one of the 5 planetary bodies known to them, that is Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, and after the sun and the moon, a custom later adopted by the Romans. For centuries, the Romans used a period of 8 days in civil practice, but in 321 CE, Emperor Constantine established the 7-day week in the Roman calendar and designated Sunday as the first day of the week. Subsequent days bore the names Moon Days, Mars Days, Mercury's Day, Jupiter's Day, Venus's Day, and Saturn's Day. Constantine, a convert to Christianity, decreed that Sunday should be a day of rest and worship. Indeed, Sunday was introduced as a day of rest within Roman Christianity by Roman Emperor Constantine. Even in modern times, Sunday is recognized as the Roman day of rest. The Romans have a habit of constantly changing the times. First, they started with the Roman calendar, where the first month of the year was March in a 10-month year. There was no Sabbath, and weeks were 8 days long. On the 8th day was a market day, which was a day of rest only for the ruling class. Then they transitioned to the Roman Republic calendar, also with no Sabbath and an 8-day week. But the market day was moved around every year, and the 12-month year started in January. Then they moved to the Julian calendar, where Sunday became the first day of a 7-day week, and a holy Sabbath was introduced. The same is true for the Gregorian calendar. There was some serious confusion of the times created by these calendar changes. The 7-day non-astronomical week cycle started with the Roman Caesar Augustus. However, the naming convention for the days of the week changed during the transition from the Roman Republic calendar to the Julian calendar. For example, the 6th of February in the year 60 AD was a Sunday on the Roman Republic calendar, but on the Julian calendar, the 6th of February in the year 60 AD was a Wednesday. What's the reason for these changes? Well, in the Roman Republic calendar, the 6th of February was a Sunday based on the sunset naming convention for the days of the week. But on the Julian calendar, the 6th of February was a Wednesday based on the sunrise naming convention used for naming the days of the week on the Julian calendar. During the change from the Julian to the Gregorian calendar, an algorithm was used for the compensation of the Julian calendar's drift against the solar year. As a result of this change, we see that the 1st of January in the year 2022 was a Friday on the Julian calendar, but on the Gregorian calendar, the 1st of January 2022 was a Saturday. Also on the Julian calendar, the 5th of January 2022 is actually the 18th of January 2022 on the Gregorian calendar. Even more confusing is the fact that not all countries that use the Gregorian timekeeping system have Sunday as the first day of the week and Saturday as the seventh day. Some countries have Monday as the first day and Sunday as the seventh day of the week, while others have Saturday as the first day and Friday as the seventh day of the week. In the Americas and the West Indies, we have Sunday as the first day of the week for most nations. Indeed, the Romans could not keep track of the times. Romans kept redefining the week and rearranging days from the Roman to the Julian to the Gregorian calendars. They couldn't even keep track of their own days during these transitions. So how can we say that the Gregorian 7-day cycle is the exact 7-day cycle from the wilderness or from the 7th day of rest after creation? How do we know that the Julian calendar Sunday wasn't implemented by the emperor's decree in 321 AD in the middle of an ancient Israelite week? Many ancient cultures had a day of rest, but those days did not coincide. Now we understand that the day of rest on the Roman calendar does not necessarily coincide with the day of rest on the ancient Israelite timekeeping system, which was lost in captivity. Note that the day of rest in the Julian timekeeping system was initially the seventh day, that is Saturday, but was changed to Sunday in 321 AD. There is nothing new under the sun. We are in the exact same position as our ancestors in ancient Egypt. They were allowed a 10th day of rest that they followed until they were given the correct 7th day Sabbath by the Most High in the wilderness. Israelites currently observe a 7th day Sabbath based on the Gregorian calendar that we are allowed to keep. In the Americas and the West Indies, the 7th day of the week is Saturday. This is the timekeeping system based on the customs and perspective of our ancient ancestors. Each month is 29 or 30 days long. The first day of each month is on the day of the new moon, where the waxing crescent first becomes visible after the conjunction. The 7th day of the week is the Sabbath, and the first day of the month can fall on any day of the week, and every 3 years or so, an intercalary month is added to keep the calendar in sync with the seasons. That is, sometimes a year is 13 months instead of the usual 12 months. However, based on all the information provided, there is no certainty that the 7th day of the week on the current Roman timekeeping system aligns with the ancient 7-day weekly cycle given to our ancestors in the wilderness. How do we get back the authentic weekly Sabbath cycle? The answer simply is, we follow the ancient path. We must follow the example of our righteous ancient ancestors. In Daniel chapter 6 verses 4 to 5, we see the following. Then the presidents and princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find none occasion nor fault. For as much as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him. Then said these men, We shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. The powers that be decided to impose a decree that would directly violate the laws of the Most High, and would seek to implement their decree with force in order to entrap and destroy the righteous. Continuing at verse 7, all the presidents of the kingdom, the governors, and the princes, the counselors, and the captains have consulted together to establish a royal statute and to make a firm decree that whosoever shall ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days, save of thee, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. Indeed, anyone caught worshipping any god besides the false god and idol, that is, King Darius, will be cast into a den of lions. Continuing at verse 10. Now, when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day, and prayed, and gave thanks before his God, as he did aforetime. Then these men assembled, and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. Indeed, Daniel only feared and obeyed the Most High. He did not fear what man could do to his body, but he revered the Most High's power, glory, dominion, and his righteous commandments more than he feared his own demise. Continuing at verse 13. Then answered they and said before the king, that Daniel, which is of the children of the captivity of Judah, regardeth not thee, O king, nor the decree that thou hast signed, but maketh his petition 3 times a day. Then the king commanded, and they brought Daniel, and cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spake and said unto Daniel, Thy God whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee. The wicked seek the righteous as a predator seeks its prey. And in their pride, the wicked think in their hearts, Let the God of Israel that you serve save you, if he so powerful and mighty. Let the Most High save you from the suffering and death we will impose on you and your people. So, what happened to Daniel? In Daniel chapter 6, verse 26 and 27, we see the following. I make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, and steadfast forever. And his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall be even unto the end. He delivereth and rescueth, and he worketh signs and wonders in the heaven and in earth. Who hath delivered Daniel from the power of the lions? We should all strive to be like Daniel, fear the Most High, and keep his commandments, even in the face of strong opposition from the wicked in the last days. Then, in our righteousness, we will receive salvation, the new covenant, and our heritage and land would be restored. The courage to do this depends on your trust in the Most High. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 reads thus, Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. Indeed, lean not on your own understanding. That is, don't go trying to create new doctrines or follow the false doctrines of others, like the lunar weekly Sabbath, which was not given to Israel by the Most High. Those that find the courage and strength to trust in the Most High only when the wicked come in like a strong injection of affliction will suffer, but ultimately those that endure will be part of the righteous remnant. We see this in Zephaniah chapter 3 verses 12 to 13, which reads thus, I will also leave in the midst of thee an afflicted and poor people, and they shall trust in the name of the Lord. The remnant of Israel shall not do iniquity, nor speak lies, neither shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth. For they shall feed and lie down, and none shall make them afraid. In conclusion, the weekly Sabbath is based on an artificial week given to the Israelites by the Most High in the wilderness. The knowledge of this artificial week was lost in captivity after the transatlantic slave trade. The Gregorian calendar artificial week resembles the artificial week of the ancient Israelites. However, there is little evidence to support the idea that the Gregorian and Israelite systems match exactly. Moreover, our ancestors did the same thing that we are doing now. That is, they followed the civil calendar of the dominant class of ancient Egypt, much the same way we follow the Gregorian calendar of the dominant class of the beast system. Today, we follow the 7th-day Sabbath according to the Gregorian calendar, and we will continue to do so until the remnant of Israel receives salvation and renewal of our heritage. But To be a part of that righteous remnant, you must fear the Most High and keep His commandments.